Welcome in to another episode of my Dynasty Fantasy Football YouTube. Today, I'm looking at Dynasty stashes. Make sure to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe if you haven't. Let's go. Stash number one, Tank Bigsby. And I feel like a broken record because this is the third time I've discussed Tank Bigsby as a stash on here, but I need to keep hammering this home. Let's look at his college profile. So he was really good. He had, as a freshman in 2020, 138 carries, 834 yards, 5 touchdowns, 6 yards a carry, contributed a little bit in the passing game. Then in 2021, still at the volume, the efficiency came down a little bit. But in 2022, 5.4 yards a carry, 10 rushing touchdowns, and 30 catches contributed in the passing game. He was a good college prospect. He got drafted in the third round by the Jaguars. But unfortunately, he came out as a rookie and was awful. Awful. I mean, there's no hiding it that he was awful as a rookie. 50 carries, 132 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2.6 yards a carry. It's horrible. And 1 catch for 6 yards. He did nothing in the passing game at all. However, the Jaguars added Keelan Robinson in round 5, who I had never heard of going into the draft. And that's because he's more of a returner. Dearness Johnson is their only other backup. Doug Peterson is insistent. I think he said it 4 times since the draft that he wants to get Tank Bigsby more involved. We need to get Tank Bigsby more involved. We need to take the pressure off Travis Etienne. We need to get Tank Bigsby more touches, blah, blah, blah. He says it a zillion times. They had an opportunity to sign another free agent who's not Dearness Johnson, who's terrible, to draft someone in the NFL draft who's not a kick returner. They had many opportunities to replace the backup if they want to do that, but they didn't do that. So where does that leave us? One Etienne injury leaves Tank Bigsby as a starter. I fully believe that he is the direct backup to Travis Etienne, as Doug Peterson has said 100 times. He's still a handcuff in a solid offense, good college profile, third-round draft capital, and just turns 23 in August. He's not an older player. He's younger than Marshawn Lloyd. He's younger than Blake Corum. So he's younger than some of the running backs in this year's class. However, on Keep Trade Cut, he's totally dismissed. RB61, he's way, way down on the rankings, not even in the handcuff value range. I have him RB55 in contrast. I just think he should be valued as someone with there is a path to dynasty relevance. And if he comes in and if he turns it around, because he was a good college prospect, people will believe it and he'll get the dynasty value. To close on Tank Bigsby, Doug Peterson has not said it one time. He said it 3 times or more that Tank Bigsby is going to get more involved. We're dismissing a running back with a good college profile and good draft capital whose team didn't replace him this year because of 50 bad carries as a rookie. And they were really bad. I'm not denying that. I'm not saying he will break out. But at his current price, he's one of the best stashes in all of Dynasty. Next up, Tyrod Taylor. Now, Tyrod Taylor, for me, is just the kind of stash I like to have in Superflex leagues. He's actually been decent over the last 3 years on the Texans and then on the Giants for 20 games, 11 starts, 63% completion, 11 touchdowns to 9 interceptions, 7 yards per attempt, and 62 carries, 418 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So he can still run even though he's older. In his final 2 starts of the 2023 season, the last 2 games, he was actually really good. 616 total passing yards, and 14 carries for 78 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. He looked a lot better on the Giants than like Tommy DeVito had, for example. We know that Tyrod Taylor got actually a pretty big backup contract to be Aaron Rodgers' backup. Jordan Travis is still injured as quarterback 3. Rodgers is coming off an Achilles tear. So we know that Taylor is a great quarterback handcuff in Superflex leagues. Of course, the path to relevance for Tyrod Taylor is an injury to Rodgers, which happened just last year and could easily happen again. He's 40, coming off an Achilles tear. Absolutely possible that there are more injuries and more issues with Aaron Rodgers. But for some reason on Keep Trade Cut, Tyrod Taylor is ranked QB 67, which says he shouldn't even be rostered. I have him quarterback 50, which is kind of in the middle of the backup range. To close out on Tyrod Taylor, these, as I said earlier, these are the type of players you want to roster in Dynasty Superflex leagues. Last year's quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, was old, still is old, got injured. And if Aaron Rodgers went out, we saw that Tyrod Taylor came in on the Giants and was good for fantasy when he came in with no weapons at all. Imagine how it would look if he had Garrett Wilson, is Breece Hall, Mike Williams, they also signed, and Malachi Corley, Xavier Gibson. They have a decent wide receiver depth chart, especially compared to last year. And Taylor still delivered 39 rushing yards a game in the 2 starts he had at the end of the season last year. So he even has rushing upside. So it's just the type of player you can acquire for nothing. And if you get 3 starts out of him, you love that. You're getting amazing dynasty value. Now, speaking of an amazing value, if you like the content on my YouTube, you should sign up for the Patreon, my Patreon. You get my rankings, access to the Discord, and the ability to ask advanced questions for these YouTube videos. Plus, I even did a Patreon-only show recently that you can only see if you're a patron. Tiers begin at just $6 a month, so it's relatively affordable. And it allows me to be the independent voice where I can say what I want, not controlled by the corporate interests, not controlled by editors who delete and edit out the things that they might not like. We don't have that here. But in order to do that, it requires independent support. I do everything myself, pay for the StreamYard, camera, graphics, all that. So if, every support, a little bit of support on the Patreon, which is the best way to do that, really helps. And I promise you'll have fun and win some fantasy leagues at the same time. But click on the link up there or in the show description to sign up for Patreon. Next, Dynasty Stash, Colby Parkinson. So he's had a long journey to relevance. Didn't play much in 2020 and 2021. But in 2022, he kind of emerged as a little bit of a backup in Seattle. 25 catches, 322 yards, 2 touchdowns, 34 targets, 1.5 catches and 18.9 yards a game. And then basically duplicated that last year. Same targets, same catches, a little bit less on the yards, and the same 2 touchdowns. But the Rams saw what Parkinson did as a backup in Seattle, and they signed him to a 3-year, $22.5 million deal with Tyler Higbee coming off of a torn ACL. He's not going to be ready for week 1, and they have nothing else at tight end. Parkinson seems like the starting tight end. He's just 25 years old, so he's in an excellent situation to build dynasty value. Path to relevance, further decline in Cooper Kupp, who's already going to be 31 going into the season. Even if Parkinson just duplicated Higbee's performance last year, he'd still gain a lot of value off of where he is now, which is tight end 47, essentially irrelevant. I have him at tight end 40, 7 spots higher. I just think he has a path to being a starter. So I don't think he should be at tight end 47. To close out on Colby Parkinson, like I said, a starting tight end on a good offense should not be as low as tight end 47. The money's even there. There was money in his contract. And we know that Sean McVay makes players fantasy relevant. He believed in Colby Parkinson and signed him to this deal. And we also know that tight ends take a while to break out. He's 25 years old. Sometimes that's just when a tight end breaks out. I happen to like what I saw of him on a limited sample size in Seattle. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's a lot better than anything he showed in Seattle now on the Rams. Last up, Trey Sermon. So I feel like we've talked about Trey Sermon enough. And this is the deepest of all these deep stashes because this is really deep. But as we know, he was a 3rd-round pick for 49ers in 2021, and he did not deliver. He's one of the big draft busts of recent times. 49ers have a lot of those at running back. He bounced around the NFL. He played on 3 teams, but let's kind of look at what he's done on a limited sample size. For the 49ers, he had 41 carries, 167 yards, touchdown, 4.1 yards a carry, and 3 catches, 26 yards. He wasn't bad, but he just didn't impress, and they went another direction with their other running backs after that year, especially with Elijah Mitchell emerging. So they sent him to the Eagles in 2022, where he was nothing. He had 2 carries for 19 yards, barely played. And then last year, he signed with the Colts, 35 carries, 160 yards, 4.6 yards a carry, and 3 catches for 13 yards. And, he got involved at least. He at least got involved. Right now, he's competing with Evan Hull for the RB2 role behind Jonathan Taylor. And I think it's a fair competition. I would lean that Hull's ahead, but there's really no evidence to say that Hull's ahead. Hull didn't do anything last year. And speaking of that, Evan Hull has 0 career NFL carries. Taylor had injury issues in 2023, and Zach Moss is gone. So you can kind of squint and see the path for Trey Sermon to have some relevance this year. But on Keep Trade Cut, he's RB 107, so completely off the radar. I have him at RB 84, significantly higher. Not that I'm super high on him, but I think he shouldn't be outside the top 100 because he has a role. And just to close out on Trey Sermon, as I said, played in a backup role in 2023. He is just 25 years old. The Colts obviously liked him enough. They did not add anyone in free agency, nor did they add anyone in the NFL draft, and they let Zach Moss go. Sermon beat out Tyler Goodson for playing time when both Taylor and Moss were injured late in 2023. So we know he's at least the RB3 on this depth chart, if not possibly the RB2. So if you have a free spot in a deeper league, again, this is the deepest of stashes, you can consider adding Trey Sermon. Now, if you like the video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. As I said earlier, only patrons get to ask these advanced questions for the YouTube. I have one question today, so we'll just hop into that right now. Thoughts on Ricky Pearsall as a prospect and fantasy outlook for him this year and next. So he's an older prospect. He turns 24 in September. He had a solid final year at Florida where he had 69 catches, 965 yards, and 4 touchdowns. I don't think he's going to be fantasy relevant this year without at least one, probably 2 injuries. 49ers offense struggled to support CMC, Ayuk, Debo, and Kittle all at the same time. It was usually CMC was obviously great, and then 1 to 2 of Ayuk, Debo, and Kittle were great, and the others were more inconsistent. So just one injury is not going to be enough to get Pearsall in because he'd still be 4th on the list, and they don't support the 4th option consistently. But Christian McCaffrey and Kittle are both getting older. Debo and Ayuk both need to be paid. They will not be able to return all 4 of them and Pearsall for 2025. Someone's going to be gone. My guess is it's going to be Debo, but I'm not sure. There's room for Pearsall here if you're willing to wait. But he's not going to produce year 1. What I want to see him do year 1 is play and at least earn some targets in the 11 personnel sets where he'll be the one getting on the field there. But if he can't even do that, I'll be concerned. But I'm not going to expect the world from him when there are 4 great to elite players ahead of him. There's just no way to pass that. Now, if you liked the video, make sure to drop a like and leave a comment with your thoughts. As always, the best way to support the channel is to subscribe, and don't forget to hit that notifications bell so you can be notified about all my exciting content as it drops. Of course, as I've said before, if you want the best Dynasty Fantasy Football advice, redraft and start sit, and all of that, it's available on the Patreon, which you can sign up for up there or in the show notes. Every sign up helps support the independent content I'm doing here. But once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all later.